Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host, Bill DeFilippo, and I'm joined today by my brother in a number of ways, personally, professionally, spiritually, in Christ, from another mother. I'm seeing how long I can do this before he decides to hang up. Robby Kalland from Uproxx Sports, which, as some of you know, I work for. Robbie, what's going on?
I'm great. It's college football season. We finally made it back. Our long winter is over. I'm fired up, man. It's kind of funny. It's like we get to the end of the season every year. I'm like, all right, like that was great, and I'm pretty happy for a while. But I gotta say, by like mid-July, especially because we do NBA, by mid-July, I'm just like, I need a game. I need a bad game on the deuce at noon. Like I just the drought gets to me, man. And look, week zero's here. I'm fired up. Got I think one Big Ten, three Big Ten teams in action. Is that correct? We got the Northwestern Nebraska extravaganza in Ireland. Can we talk about this for a second? Why do we
Yeah, of
always
course.
send? Why do we always send the absolute worst game possible to Europe?
So, Robbie and I actually had this conversation last night while we were working. This is not just a college football thing. The
No,
NFL always sends like a Dolphins against the Bears game to
so
London, but
there are
we're
three
yeah.
there are three London NFL games this year. Let me read them off to you. We have the Vikings versus the Saints, which is the best one, and that is two 9-8, 8-9 teams that are doing battle for the last wild card. Okay, we have the New York Football Giants against the Packers. So we are sending Daniel Jones across the pond. That's
And
what
Saquon
we're
Barkley.
Exporting.
Hold on. We got
That's
to be good to got to be good to the people. Saquon Barkley too.
I'm sure, but he can only salvage so much. Everybody knows
That's
this at
right.
this point. We're putting the people through Daniel Jones, and then we're sending the Broncos versus the Jaguars. So like they get Russell Wilson, and that could be maybe fun, but that's also probably a 9-8 team against the Jaguars, and at least it's not Big Herb's Jags anymore, but it's
Ooh,
still the Jaguars, and they're not very good. And I
yes.
just I just don't like. I get you probably don't want to send a really good game there because you don't want to send a game that has real playoff implications and
Right. You
make
don't want,
those teams
and you don't
play
want
an
to.
important game that's going to matter when
Right.
they've gone on a 10-hour flight.
Right. And this year we're doing that in college football with Nebraska at Northwestern for basically the reason that one of these teams are coached by an Irish, and then the other week one game Wyoming at Illinois at 4 p.m. on
That's right.
BTN. But Robbie mentioned it. We're hankering for a
Oh my
ESPN
god.
two noon kick, and for as
Oh my
long
god.
as until the TV stuff happens, that
I will
means
I will miss it.
we're talking Big Ten. That means we are talking Beth Mowens and the ex tight end whose name I
Mm-hmm.
can't think of. Talking about
Craig
a nice,
Calceretta or whatever.
yeah, whatever his name. That yeah, okay, I know who you're talking about now. That stuff, and we're in Big Ten country, baby. And Robbie, in addition to his professional duties, is the co-host of the Puntcast, along with Chip Patterson and Tom Fernelli of CBS Sports, where they talk football. They talk football through a gambling lens. And what we are going to do today is do a Big Ten win totals pod. And before we get into the win totals, everything
Mhm.
from we got that from Caesars. I want to give Robbie the chance to do any Big Ten slander he wants. I want to stress that before we hopped on, Robbie thought this meant slander the conference as a whole. Absolutely not. Any coaches, any players, any programs,
So,
any athletic directors, any fan bases. If there is a engineering professor at Purdue you have strong thoughts on, just let it all out, Robbie. This is a safe space.
okay. Well, look, it might be a little too easy, but like we're coming into another season of Big Ten football, and where's the optimism? It's in Lincoln, Nebraska again. All right, they're believing again. It's Lucy with the football. They're letting themselves believe that Scott Frost is gonna save them one more time. And what they're leaning on is that they are the best 3-9 team in history. They will tell you they were the greatest 3-9 college football team to ever walk this earth, and they had a neutral point differential in the Big Ten and lost all but one game, and that proves that this year things are going to be better. I'll say Nebraska fan. What I'll say to Nebraska fan, and we're going to get to Nebraska.
We will.
But what I want to say to Nebraska fans is this. I feel like if you are constantly losing close games, what is the biggest thing that we talk about with what helps finish games, what cutting back on turnovers? What is that? That's coaching, right? That's what we blame those exact scenarios on, correct? Late game execution, turnovers, penalties, these special teams. These are the things that we blame on coaching. What has not changed in Nebraska?
If I may, the other thing that you think of with those teams is that they have like composure about them. And whenever Nebraska is in a close football game, you look on the sideline and Scott Frost is like beet red. He's damp. He's like
You know what I think is part of the problem? You know what I think? He looks disheveled in part because he always has his hat stupidly cocked to like a 45-degree angle. And I think it sends a bad message of panic to the players. You can't take the time to just get your hat in a functional look. Like it's always hurriedly put on, and like he couldn't even bother to just like that. Just like he always looks, and it makes him look like he doesn't know what he's doing. And I think that's part of the problem. I think it gives off the wrong vibe to your players. Like and I guarantee you he's the type of coach that will yell at his players if like a belt loop is missed or a sock isn't pulled up high enough or a jersey comes slightly untucked because you just got tackled by a 325-pound man and you didn't get it tucked back in. But this man can't get a hat on correctly.
Yep.
Scott Frost, fraud, forever and ever.
I don't think it's a stretch to say Scott Frost on notice.
He restructured his deal, so he's like they're at their staying together for the kids portion of the relationship. Like
they said, Scott, restructure your deal so we can make it easier to fire you.
Right. Look, Bill, we're both children of divorce here. We know what's coming next. All right, like this is. You're used to this, man. Like we know what comes next in this relationship. I'm here for Scott. And like, I'm not even going to pile on Northwestern right now. Like, I just want to know why a Pat Fitzgerald team couldn't tackle for a whole year. Like, that's literally your entire brand. And you're going to tell me, and I was mad because Northwestern is a safe place for me as a man who loves betting on unders. Northwestern forever. I knew what I was going to get. Okay. I was going to get a god awful offense with a quarterback that we were being told was good, that like I'm watching with my very eyes and know he is not. Okay. A long history. Clayton Thorson is the great example of this, but Hunter Johnson, they're all the same. They're all clean. There's always a Clayton Thorson in the banana stand at Northwestern. Okay. Is what I'm saying. There's always that quarterback that you're like, maybe if he put 4 different things together, he'd be good, but he won't. We know we're going to get that. We're not going to run the football. And we're supposed to play good run defense. Okay? Supposed to.
Yeah.
Can I read for you the Northwestern game log last year of rushing defense? This is what teams did to them on the ground.
Hit me.
Michigan State, 326 yards on 37 carries. Duke, 211 yards. Duke. Duke is awful football team. Ohio, not state, just Ohio, Bob Kiddies, 179 yards rushing on 31 carries. Nebraska ran for 427 yards. Nebraska running backs ran a quarter mile on your ass.
Hey, real quick before you But before you keep going, what was the final score of the Nebraska Northwestern game last year?
56-7. 56-7. Okay. And mind you, this is how Nebraska ends up with a net
correct
point differential of 0 in the Big Ten, is because they took Northwestern to the woodshed. And again, that doesn't really count. Michigan, 294 yards. Minnesota, 308 yards. Iowa, 185 yards. Wisconsin, 268 yards. And Illinois, 217 yards. That is 9 of your 12 football games, giving up 179 yards or more. 3 games over 300. It's the one thing you're supposed to be able to do. I expect a high-flying offense to just cook Northwestern, because athletically they're not gonna be able to figure it out. But it shouldn't happen that way on the ground. You have a middle linebacker at coach. Tackle. It's pathetic. I lost Bill. I'm just ranting. I gotta think. Minnesota quarterbacks, we don't trust them. I'm just gonna keep doing this till Bill gets back. Do you remember when Todd McShay said Mitch Leidner was going to be a first-round pick? We were just lied to for no reason. The Will Levis of Minnesota football. Penn State great. Will Levis, I'm sorry. He's not first-rounder either at Kentucky. I'm not falling for it. I've been lied to, led astray, bamboozled, hoodwinked before. I won't allow it. I won't allow it. I don't know. Jim Harbaugh. I got a moment for you. I hope people just leave babies at Jim Harbaugh's office all season. I just hope he has 100 kids at his doorstep this season because of his dumbass comment. That's what I hope. Jim Harbaugh. Taking care of kids. Ridiculous. Purdue's worthless without Rondale Moore. They shouldn't even be in the conference. Rutgers. I actually don't hate Rutgers. No feeling toward Rutgers. Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin. They just don't change. I love that. Remember when Graham Mertz threw for like 1 billion yards on Nebraska week 0 one year? Then was not good for 3 more years. I love that about Wisconsin. Even when they have hope at the quarterback position, it's still mediocre. They're still just going to run the ball. Corn-fed linemen. That's what I love about the Big Ten. Beef. I'm just still going, Bill. I don't know if some of that's usable. I talked about. You can listen to it. I talked about people should just drop children off at Jim Harbaugh's office all season. I said Purdue shouldn't be in the conference now that Rondale Moore's gone. They're just worthless. Like what's the point?
All right, so we had some audio issues. I don't know how much of Robby's riffing is going to make it in. I'm very excited to find out the answer to that. But it's probably best if we just dive right in to doing
Jersey.
totals. Yeah, for some reason my dog decided he wants to be on the pod. So there's Jersey. Never mind. Let's go right into totals. But first, I have an ad read to do, and that is for our pod's newest sponsor, Home Field Apparel. If you are a college sports fan on the internet, surely you are aware of Home Field Apparel. If you are not, Home Field is a premium collegiate apparel brand based out of Indianapolis. Their shirts are comfortable, they're unique, and they take the time to make sure that the things you get make you feel a little bit closer to your school. They had, important word here, a little thing called Big News Saturday where they try to get fan bases to buy as much gear as possible. Penn State ended up winning that by such a margin that they ended up retiring it altogether. I don't know if Penn State winning it is why they retired it. My assumption is no, but I'm going with that anyway. Now you can still purchase whatever you want from their Penn State line or any other line for that matter from Home Field Apparel. There are 15 pieces of Penn State merch and all. And if you are a new customer, you can use the promo code ROAR Lions Roar, uppercase, all caps, one word, and you will get 15% off of your first order. Again, promo code ROAR Lions Roar, uppercase, one word, for 15% off of your first order. And now it's time. Let's talk win totals in the Big Ten. We are going worst to first for the good reason that if this pod messes up its recording again, we don't want you people knowing what we think about Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State. We want you knowing what we think about the bad teams in the conference. And we are going to start with maybe the baddest of them all, Robbie, a team that I know you slandered a moment ago before my internet decided to start being really weird. That would be the mighty Northwestern Wildcats starting off this season in lovely Ireland. Northwestern last year, they were a 3-9 football team, 1-8 in conference play. It wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination. They started the year 3-3 and then did not win another game after that. Came close against Iowa, weirdly enough, but neither here nor there. This year, the Wildcats entering the season over under 3.5 wins for Pat Fitzgerald and co.
I look, I don't think anybody should invest hard-earned dollars on Northwestern football, and on either side. I don't think it's good for you to be financially invested. I don't think it's good or healthy to be emotionally invested in what Northwestern football does. I say this as somebody who regularly puts their financial and emotional investment in them on a week-to-week basis. As I said, like they were a great under team for years. I don't know if they are. They fired the defensive coordinator that broke everything, theoretically. But can they fix that immediately? Who's to say? But here's what I'll tell you. If you go, Northwestern's terrible, they're not winning 4 games. Do you know what happens to you in that situation? Northwestern wins 8 football games. Northwestern wins 8 games or 9 games, maybe wins the Big Ten West, and does not average more than 20 points per game in doing so. That's what will happen to you. However, if you want to get bullish on the Wildcats, they will once again forget how to tackle all year. They will lose 9 games, and you will be out of luck. They will go 0-9 or whatever in the Big Ten. Just don't. If you made me, I'd go over because I think they can win 1 Big Ten game.
Yeah.
And I think they beat Duke this year. The rest of their schedule, Southern Illinois, Miami, Ohio. I think they can win 1 Big Ten game. I don't know who that's against. It could be Maryland. It could be Illinois. It might be Nebraska. I don't know. Probably not Nebraska. That's not a great matchup for them. But they could win a game somewhere. Purdue, maybe. But I lean over. I know our friend Brad Rowland, colleague, loves the Kitties, loves the over. I think he just thinks they can win 4 games. I don't think he loves them to be like a bowl team. But Correct. Loves the over. Fitz Magic, he sent me in the text before I hopped on here. He's just all in. It feels like, look, when you give Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern expectations, they are going to fall short of them.
But
when you tell them they are going to be bad and they can throw that big old chip on the shoulder, 4 wins, 5 wins is in play. That's all. That's all I get. They're not a good football team, but if they can tackle like a little better, they can win a couple games. Like that's the big thing. Like they I don't know what happened last year.
Yeah. I mean, they have a pretty decent running back in
Mm-hmm.
Evan Hull. For some reason, I haven't really dove into the big fellas yet. Peter Skronsky is being talked about as like a no doubt hyper lock first round NFL draft pick along their offensive line. Like, I always just trust Pat Fitzgerald to figure out a defense. Like, last year, for all we know, last year was a huge outlier for them. And
Right.
Northwestern football has always had a reliably well-coached defense, and for whatever reason, they just did not last year. I think that normalizes that reverts to the mean a little bit this year. Quarterback play, Lord knows what's going to happen there.
You want me to read off their quarterback stats from last year?
I don't, but you should.
It's fun. Ryan Helinski, who I believe is going to be the starter.
He's in the contention for it, yes.
Completed 54% of his passes. That's not great.
Go Cox.
For 978 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Andrew Marty Party, senior, 66 for 100 out of 110 passes, 60%, 707 yards, 6 TDs, 6 interceptions. So, not as bad. And Hunter Johnson, the aforementioned, the greatest quarterback recruit to ever come through Evanston, Illinois. 45 for 75, 424, 4 TDs and 4 interceptions. As a team, 13 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Just barely over 2,000 yards passing. A disgrace, honestly. But they did have a 1,000-yard rusher, like you said, in Evan Hull. Yes. He also, I think, was like their 4th leading receiver with almost 300 yards.
Baby.
There.
No, Robbie, you're incorrect. He was their 2nd leading receiver with 33 catches, 264 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The 2 touchdowns.
2nd leading receiver with 270
yards. His yards per catch, 8. The one thing I will say,
that's not bad for a running back, honestly.
Agreed. Like you mentioned, Duke, Southern Illinois, Miami, Ohio is not the toughest non-con slate. All 3 of those are at home, and they have the bye built in before the Duke game because they go to Ireland. A thing not enough people are talking about is that Pat Fitzgerald is going to kiss the Blarney Stone and be 10 times more powerful. So I am picking Northwestern to win that game. I actually don't know if I'm picking Northwestern to win that game. It's just, I don't know if you've noticed, Pat Fitzgerald is Irish. Let's move on to a team in a state with the Irish, and that is the Indiana Hoosiers.
What a segue.
Robbie, I'm a professional for a reason. Let me tell you something about them Indiana Hoosiers, folks. Vibes, not good. Indiana last season, real bad.
They were Northwestern bad last year.
They were 2-10, 0-9 in conference play. This year, they're entering with a total of 3.5. And Robbie, I'm going to say something a little bit crazy here. I think I'm going to take the under here.
Under?
I do not think this team is especially good. Their savior at quarterback was supposed to be 4-star Donovan McCulley.
He's a wide receiver now.
No. You forgot the most important detail. He apparently went to the coaches and said, I want to be a wide. He is the first person in the history of college football to do the opposite of what every wide receiver does, which is say, I want to play quarterback. He was a 4-star quarterback who is moving to wide receiver for no reason. They're non-conference. Idaho, they should win that football game.
That's a win.
Western Kentucky, who they lose a lot of stuff, but I'm a little bit worried because Western Kentucky can just play basketball on grass. And then they got to travel to Cincinnati to take on the Fighting Fickles. I am now going to read
3 touchdown dogs.
I am now going to read the rest of their schedule. Start the season against an Illinois team who it is at home. I do give them that. It is on a Friday night, which +10 skill attributes for Indiana and everything. But Illinois, if there's one thing that they can do, it is push you around and turn a game into a slog. And I just don't know if Indiana is good in that sort of football game. After the Cincinnati game, at Nebraska, Michigan, Maryland, at Rutgers, Penn State, at Ohio State, at Michigan State versus Purdue. They are going to be underdogs. I haven't looked at what the line is for the Illinois game. Indiana minus 4.5. That does surprise me a little bit. But they're going to be underdogs in every game after their first 2 games of the year, except for Rutgers, but even that's in New Jersey. So I don't know.
You don't walk into the birthplace, Bill. You know that.
Listen, not a lot of people survive a trip to the old Raritan. I'm going to take the under on Indiana. There's something weird about the vibe of this football team. They're one of those teams that even if, let's say they beat Illinois and Idaho,
mm-hmm.
Western Kentucky, at Cincinnati, at Nebraska, Michigan, and then a Maryland team that we're going to talk about in a second, but I think is kind of designed to do one thing particularly well, and that one thing particularly well they're really good at. If they start the season 2-0 and then go 5 losses in a row heading into Rutgers, they get to 3 if they beat Rutgers, Penn State, at Ohio State, at Michigan State, Purdue. I think they're
basically going to have to win the Purdue game.
I think this is going to be a long season for the fine folks in Bloomington. Connor from Home Field Apparel, all of our friends at Home Field Apparel, please don't listen to this podcast.
So here's what I'll say. I know you can
go ahead.
It was 4 at certain shops. So if you were going, and I think we should preface this with we're picking all of these. We do not believe in all of these should be where you put your hard-earned dollars.
Correct.
Like I said about the Northwestern game, we'll let you know when we really believe in something. I don't know if you really believe in this under enough to want to like suggest people bet it.
Correct.
But if you were to bet it, I know there are 4s out there, so you could at least save yourself a push if they were to beat Maryland and Rutgers, basically, or Rutgers and Purdue or something like that. But yeah, look, man, it's bad. The quarterback situation is not great with Jack Tuttle and the transfer from Mizzou or something, or who you're looking at. I'm not a Mizzou guy, so like you're not going to feel optimism for me there.
Other than our pal Bill C, who is a Mizzou guy.
There's not many. I mean, it's just folks that went there.
Yes,
it's a tough scene. I've been to 2 SEC championship games. Both of them were Mizzou getting their asses waxed. Honestly, it's a disgrace to the rest of the SEC East. Like, they should all be ashamed they allowed that to happen.
Yes.
Twice. Okay? Like, Florida, there's a reason Mark Richt was out of there. And I truly believe it's that Georgia fans went to the Dome and had to watch Mizzou play Alabama. I left in the third quarter. I was covering the game. I left. I was on shift, left in the third quarter so that I could get ready for the ACC title game. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a little Mizzou slander while they're kicking them on. The alpha nerd, though, he's got them trending. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have real strong feelings on Indiana. I'm not gonna sit here and say that they're just a stone cold lock for an over. 3.5 feels real low, especially just because things get weird in those games with the Illinois and Indianas and Rutgers and Marylands, and like they all kind of exist in the same morass.
That's the perfect word to describe it.
Like it's weird. I mean, even like Nebraska, like I don't like it. 4, I'd be a little more confident on the other because it's really hard to find 5 wins on that schedule. They basically have to win every winnable game to get there. But at 3.5, firm stay away. 4,
agreed.
Talk me into the under.
Yeah. Let's move on to the mighty Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. Yet another team that was not good last year. Rutgers went 5-7 with a 2-7.
But they won 5 games
in conference play. They did win 5 games.
They won 5 games.
We'll give them this. That is better than what the other teams have done. Rutgers, 4 wins is their total this year. I'm going to tell you the single reason why I'm probably leaning towards a push here. One, their two best players from last year, running back Isaiah Pacheco, wide receiver Bo Melton, have since moved on. Two best offense players like last year have since moved on to the NFL. I think those are going to be pretty difficult guys to replace, even though I know they have a four-star quarterback named Gavin Winsat, who maybe he is able to win the job. I haven't checked if he has been named the starting quarterback. Give me 2 seconds. And they haven't said. So they might go in that direction. But when I went to the Penn State-Rutgers game last year, and half of Penn State's team was out with the stomach flu, Rutgers, I have never seen anything like this. Penn State basically put 8 guys in the box and manned up every cornerback and said, we are not letting you run the football. You are going to throw the football. That is literally the only thing we will let you do. Penn State won 28-0 because despite that, Rutgers went, no, we're going to run the football anyway. And it didn't work well for them. I think that Greg Schiano is like a good program builder type guy. Maybe they're able to pip a few teams that aren't expecting it at some point, but I'm looking at this schedule. I feel really good about them at home against Wagner. I feel decent about them against Temple. Starting the season at Boston
they're gonna beat Temple. Temple's a pretty not good team.
I don't think Rutgers is very good. Boston College, that's a tricky one to start the season. I'm not sure
BC, the BC game, I think, is the one you have to feel they win. I lean over because I think they're gonna catch somebody.
That's fair.
Like here's the thing. I agree.
Wait.
It's Nebraska.
I was about to say, let me tell you who they play on a Friday night at home at 7 p.m. That would be the mighty Nebraska Cornhuskers right before they go on their bye. It is a week after Ohio State, so I am interested in how they come out looking after they lose that game
66-3.
If the Bucks are feeling merciful, yes.
The saddest field goal possible. Greg will take it. Yeah, I mean, but like Wagner, Temple, and I think they can beat Indiana. Possibly, I agree. I think it's more likely to be a push. I don't know. Like I always just expect Rutgers to trip somebody up when Schiano's the head coach.
I think that's reasonable.
One of these Nebraskas, Maryland. I mean, couldn't you? When do they? Let me see their schedule real fast.
Here's what it is: BC, Wagner, Temple, or their non-con, and then Iowa at Ohio State, Nebraska, Indiana at Minnesota, and then Michigan at Michigan State, Penn State at Maryland to end the year. So basically, I think if they don't get to 4 by the time they get to November, they're going to be in for a bad time.
Agree. So, but like like the Nebraska game is definitely a possibility. That Minnesota game is after Minnesota goes to Penn State. And if let's say Minnesota riding a little high, if they were to pull off an upset on the road or something, wouldn't that be a spot for Rutgers to just bury somebody? PJ Flex hopes, just the boat sinking. Or at that point, Minnesota might be 2 losses in, having gone to Michigan State and Penn State by then, and they might be a little wobbly. I think Tom Fornelli said it. He's like Rutgers, when they don't face a huge talent disparity, they can just muck it up enough.
Yeah, they're willing to muck it up, and they're willing to do things that are a little bit unconventional. And the one thing I'll give Schiano is that I think he is probably one of the better coaches in the Big Ten at understanding that like his coordinators are better equipped to like coach a football game. Like he just seems to. Every time I've ever watched Rutgers, I don't think Schiano is like holding the play sheet in front of his face. Right. It's always like going and talking, patting guys in the back, saying, here's what I saw, and then getting out of the way, which I will give him.
Yeah. So I think it's 4. again, I wouldn't bet it on either side because, like Northwestern, you just shouldn't be financially or emotionally invested in Rutgers football unless you are from the cradle, man.
Yeah, and well, I actually disagree because some people are from the cradle and are not financially or emotionally invested in Rutgers football.
Well, it's a square and rectangle thing. Like not all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles.
That's
Bill.
right. That's right.
Come
on. Let's move on to the Illinois Fighting Illini, a team that I did not watch. I did not watch a single game of theirs last year,
brother.
Nope. Shut up.
Let me tell you. No, you're going to listen. It was Brett Bielema football, baby. We got down and dirty with tight ends and fullbacks. I watched plenty of Illinois. They were a staple of the Big Ten network at noon, brother. Little Matt Millen on the call? Come on.
Matt Millen goated. Illinois.
Legend. Terrible coach. GM. Terrible GM.
Real bad. At 4.5.
Great.
What interests me about this Illinois team, one, it is very possible to me, Wyoming at Indiana, Virginia, Chattanooga. It is possible, in my opinion, that Illinois is at 4 by the time their conference slate started. That Virginia game makes me feel a little queasy. I think they can bully Indiana. And if they can bully Indiana, I think they can win that. They can take that crowd. I'm excited. That's an early season game in Bloomington on a Friday night. I think they can win that game. But let's just say hypothetically they are able to win all 4 of those games, even if they go 3-1 in that stretch. Yeah. Iowa at home, Minnesota at home, Purdue at home, at Northwestern. They're going to lose at Michigan. They're going to lose to Sparty in all likelihood. I will not throw out the possibility that Sparty does something stupid. At Wisconsin, they're probably going to lose that. At Nebraska, who knows? I do think the way Illinois plays, the way Brett Bielema, I do think Brett Bielema is up there. I think he's in the conversation for one of the 2 to 3 best football coaches in the Big Ten in terms of knowing how he wants his teams to play and having them execute it. Chase Brown, Josh McCray were a really good backfield last year. I believe Reggie Love is their young running back who they're very high on. They can get down and dirty. They can get some games in the muck this upcoming season. They did announce today Tommy DeVito, the Syracuse transfer, is going to be their starting quarterback.
He brings a running element too.
He is not great, but he is better than Brandon Peters and Artur Sikowski.
Rutgers legend. Art Sikowski.
Michigan legend, Rutgers legend, Syracuse legend. That is an interesting quarterback room. And Isaiah Williams is a very good wide receiver. I think I am leaning pretty strongly on 4.5 here, and this is probably, if I'm betting on one of these first 4 teams we've talked about, this might be the one I do.
Yeah, I mean, so here's where I actually have pause for concern, and you just mentioned that Brett knows the style he wants to play. Mm-hmm. Tom Fornelli is an Illinois man. He's in the Illini. He likes the over. His wins that he's picking is a little weird. He's got them beating Minnesota and Purdue, which is interesting, and losing to Indiana and Virginia, which I think we have some opposite. But again, the math all still is the same.
Yeah, math is
My
still
concern is Tom's excited because the new OC that they have is supposed to open things up some. I don't like that. I don't like that. This team is built in Bert's image, right? Okay? We've crafted a roster that's supposed to run 32 sets. All right? We're supposed to have 3 tight ends and 2 in the backfield sometimes and maybe 1 wide receiver just because, we're supposed to. But, we want beef on the line, and I'm not sure how I feel about this whole spreading the fellas out thing for a team that's been recruited by Brett. I'm a little concerned that brings a couple of disasters into play.
That is very fair.
Especially with Tommy DeVito, who I'm a Dino guy. I like Dino. He's not great, but he's fun.
What
Syracuse hasn't been good recently, but they're fun. The thing about Tommy DeVito is if you let him throw the football too much, it is bad. It's not good. He's going to make mistakes, and he's going to try to put it in places he can't put it. He's good running the football. And I think there's some dynamic stuff they can do in that. And that's what Tom seems to be insisting, that they're going to kind of spread out, run a little more option type stuff and reads and that sort of thing, and diversify the looks. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that gets them a win. But I get a little nervous when I hear about them pushing the ball downfield and stuff, especially now that Tommy DeVito's throwing the rock, because he's not always going to look off that safety.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I think of these first four, you can talk me into an Illini over. It worries me a touch. I think Brad has the under, but you can talk me into it.
Let's move on to a team I'm really interested in, and that is the Maryland Terrapins. Their total is 6. Mm-hmm. On one hand, basically all their good recruits from the last year on defense decided they were done, which I'll be honest, I don't think that's a good thing.
Suboptimal.
Depending how you're looking at it. The one thing I will say, other big thing, their starting running back last year, Tayon Fleet Davis, is now in the league. But the one thing I will say is that of all the 5 teams we've talked about so far, and then I will even go and lump Purdue, Minnesota, Nebraska into this. They're just that kind of next tier of teams. Mm-hmm. The thing that Maryland is good at, throwing the
crab
football.
Cakes.
They are, yes, crab cakes and football, as we all know. The thing that this specific Maryland football team is good at, throwing the football, I legitimately think, I will buy into the only team with a better passing attack in the Big Ten that coming into the season is Ohio State. I think Taulia, it might be empty calories sometimes, but he will throw the ball and get yardage and shred your defense a bit. I think Rakim Jarrett and Dante Demas, especially if Demas can come back healthy, is a really good wide receiver 1-2 punch. Again, like the only one I will straight up take over it right now are the 7,000 guys that Ohio State has. So you then look at their schedule. Buffalo at Charlotte, and then the fighting Rhett Lashleys of SMU. There's 3 wins. They're halfway home at that point. They're going to lose to Michigan. They're probably going to lose to Michigan State, although that game is at home. And we have seen Maryland do some real weird stuff at home.
Yes.
Their next 3 games after those 2, versus Purdue, at Indiana, versus Northwestern, and they end the year at home against Rutgers. I think, while I don't love this Maryland team generally, I think the fact that they are that good at throwing the football, they have that thing that they can go to every time. I think the over here is one of the safer bets on my board. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, the only concern is you can turn them over because they're going to throw the ball that much. And if they turn it over against the wrong team and lose the wrong game at the wrong time, then you're basically hoping for a push. Because the schedule is just tough. Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State. That's 5 losses, man. You got to win every winnable game to go over. It's just tough. The margin for error on this is just so tough. I get Michigan State's not a guaranteed loss, but they're going to be dogs.
Right.
And maybe they can do something like do they go to Wisconsin? Because if they go to Wisconsin, then they're not winning that game.
They go to Wisconsin.
Then they're not winning that game. I'm with you. Like, I think they're a fun team, and I think there's something that to be said for doing something not a lot of other teams do in a conference. Like, we're just gonna throw the ball. Like, we don't care. We're in the Big Ten. We don't care.
They're going to put up big points and big passing yardage every game. The thing is, their defense might be total cheats.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as bullish on you on the safe part. I do think it's more likely
right.
that they win 6 games and make a bowl game, and so you just push. But those 5 games on the schedule make it such a thin margin for error. Like, you can't lose to Purdue. You can't lose to, you can't have one of those stumbling blocks. You can't get Northwestern. You can't get Rutgers. Like, you can't have one of those little trip ups that some other teams might be able to get away with. Because, like, and it's the problem with being in the East and getting a bad draw in the West. Like, it's just,
that's fair.
If you draw Wisconsin and you're one of the lower teams in the East, like, you just have a not fun schedule. And, like, do you get too beat up for that Rutgers game at the end of the year? Like, what? Again, 6 wins is where I would put them at. I agree. Tolly is able to push it downfield in a way that, like you said, not many Big Ten teams can. And maybe that means they can catch somebody. Like, maybe they can catch Michigan State at home. Maybe they can do something there, and then sure. But I do have concerns a touch about the schedule, but I'm with you. I guess I would lean over, because it would be basically the Michigan State and Purdue games. Can they win one of those?
Agreed. The one thing I will say is that at our 9 to 5s, we almost certainly will be writing a post this year based off of the Maryland game where the two teams combined to score like 150 points. It's going.
It's going to be gross for me. Like, as an underman, I hate Maryland. But
my pal Patrick Mayhorn of Meet at Midfield once described them as the most House of Highlights team in college football. I agree. Purdue and Minnesota, I'm lumping them together because their number is both 7. Okay. I'm taking the under on both for the simple reason.
Wow.
For the simple reason, I just don't care about either of these teams.
Wow.
The one thing,
man, people are there's chatter about Minnesota being good, man.
Well, the thing I will,
there's smart people that like Minnesota.
The thing I will give Minnesota, but this is a part good, part bad thing. We did see Tanner Morgan's best years with Kirk Ciarrocca as his offensive coordinator. Ciarrocca's back. Morgan did only go 59.8% completion, 2,044 yards, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I think you're betting on 2 things with them. One, him having a big bounce back year with the OC who knows him. And, the concern is that they don't have 2 NFL wide receivers like they did during his best years. And then 2, you're betting on a Mohamed Ibrahim bounce back year off of, I believe it was an Achilles tear, which maybe he's able to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned. But at the end of the day, I just think Minnesota just bores me. We're at the point where I just think they're kind of in that middle class of the Big Ten West. And I don't know if there is a more boring thing in college football than the middle class of the Big Ten West. I will give them New Mexico State, Western Illinois, Colorado as their non-con. Isn't bad. That is some Charmin ass non-con. And then their crossover games at Penn State versus Rutgers. And then so you know what?
And
Rutgers and Michigan State. Rutgers, Northwestern, and those 3 games are all at home. That's 5. If they could find 2 more wins in there, which certainly not implausible, I would probably be a little bit more confident about them than I am Purdue. And with Purdue, it's just
With Minnesota, this is another team where if you're going to go under, there are 7.5s out there, and you should definitely go find that. At 7, I think they probably win 7 games.
Okay.
You mentioned the 5 games that they should win: the non-cons, Rutgers, and Northwestern. You get Iowa at home, and Minnesota-Iowa is always one of those games that just is hideous, and I love. Just great field position football between those 2 teams.
Real fundamentals.
The total there will be 43.5, and I'll have the under. I can't wait. They can beat Purdue. They get Illinois, Nebraska's. I think they go on the road to Nebraska, and that's it's not a. I don't know.
In front of the nicest fans in college football.
Yeah, exactly. Balloons and things, just so friendly. I don't know. The draw is not the hardest out of the East. I mean, Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers. Penn State's a loss. Michigan State's probably a loss. But like we said, like there's not a lock that Sparty's able to kind of do what they. I don't know. It comes down to that offensive line at Minnesota.
Yes, always.
Like, can they be better? And if they can, you could talk me into winning 8 games just because, like you said, they are like every other team in the middle of the Big Ten West, and somebody's got to win some games.
Yeah,
and maybe everybody goes 7-5. Maybe they all do. Nebraska, Minnesota.
That would be really funny.
Nebraska, Minnesota, Purdue all could go 7-5.
Yes.
But I think one of them wins 8 games, and you could talk me into Minnesota being the team that does. And somebody wins 6 games, and you could talk me into Purdue being that team.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, Purdue without Rondale Moore is not a team I care about.
Correct. Purdue, Aiden O'Connell's back at quarterback. They couldn't run the football at all last year, so they threw it a ton, and now the guy they threw it to the most is not there anymore. On defense, they have to replace their top 2 tacklers, linebacker Jalen Alexander, safety Marvin Grant, and their best defensive player, George Karlaftis, is now in the NFL. Starting the year with Penn State, that is an interesting football game. Like, I would like it if Penn State won it. I think I'm going to pick Penn State, but then things get a bit easier for them. Indiana State at Syracuse, FAU, at Minnesota, at Maryland, Nebraska. End the year, Northwestern, Indiana, and sandwich in the middle there at Wisconsin, Iowa, at Illinois. This is if they can run the football at all, I'd feel a little bit better about them. If their defense wasn't losing so many impact players and they weren't losing a guy as good as David Bell, because while Milton Wright might not be in college anymore. Oh wait, no, he's still in college. My bad. Milton Wright and Jackson Anthrop were both good receivers for them. But David Bell was the guy when they just needed a miracle.
Just throw it. Just huck it. Just fine.
And I hope that works.
He's down there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no. Actually, I was wrong. Milton Wright and Jackson Anthrop. So they have to replace their 3 best pass catchers.
That's not good.
From last year. Not good. A lot has to happen for Purdue to get to 7 wins. Their schedule, that non-con is real Charmin soft. So that will certainly help them a bit. But, I will probably oh, God. When Tom gave out his number, it was at 8.5, and it was at 8.5. Oh wait, no, that was Penn State. Looking at the wrong team, it was 7.
No, it's 7. Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah,
7.
Yeah. I feel better about the under there just because, like you said, like I feel like with Minnesota, you're talking about things that feel more likely to happen. Mm-hmm. A bounce back year for a guy under a coordinator he's familiar with, a team that historically has a pretty good offensive line, getting things back there. Like you kind of believe some of these things can happen. Talk about everything Purdue has to do to rekindle the magic from a 9-3 year, replace pretty much everybody that mattered on offense at the skill positions. And, you lose your best defender. That was the guy that got after the quarterback and was the reason that you were able to kind of have a havoc rate that was pretty high. I think this is more likely to be a 6-6 team than an 8-4 team. So under.
That's fair. Moving on, Nebraska 7.5. I'm handing out the under here, and I'm not going to talk about football one bit. I just find them unserious.
Under, like, first off, who scheduled Oklahoma?
No. They did this. This was the home and home. They played the first leg of this last year, and I vividly remember. I will not name names, but there was a person who has covered Nebraska for a very long time who wrote a piece about how nice Oklahoma fans were to Nebraska fans during that game and how they just don't get that in the Big Ten. And I thought that was really funny.
Love that. Yeah, like that. Don't schedule home and homes with Oklahoma. What's the upside there? Like seriously, are you going into Oklahoma and getting recruits? Is that a hotbed?
You get to say you did it for historical reasons.
Like, are you really?
we know how bad Nebraska is at selling out their stadium, so this is a chance.
Oh
to get
yeah, no, it's real tough for them. I just like, what's the upside there? You're not going to get the recruits. Oklahoma State are going to seal up all those guys that are good, and it's not exactly like a hotbed. It just baffles me. I don't know what you're doing. Yes, this is going to be a firm underplay because 7.5. You mean they can go 7-5 and I win?
Mm-hmm.
Can you count up 8 wins on the schedule?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Oklahoma at Michigan, Wisconsin at Iowa. Okay. You can basically write those 4 losses in ink, I think. They can't afford another loss on their schedule.
So they can't lose another one. So they can't lose to Minnesota. They can't lose to a Purdue team that we're not high on, but things get weird. They can't lose to an Illinois. Illinois might just make things weird.
That might be the game where Burke decides we're going to bully some guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. Gross.
Put them away. And then, like we mentioned,
I would trust Minnesota more than Nebraska. And what did we talk about? What was that?
That was me doing a weird Ric Flair. Like I love that, Robbie.
Yeah, I would trust Minnesota over Nebraska. I just don't see it. I don't see where they get 8 wins, like, more often than not. That's the other thing, is like, you just got to really believe that if you ran this out a bunch, they're gonna do that more times than they're gonna win 7 games. I don't know how you believe that if you're outside of Lincoln. No thanks. And like we talked in the open, like, come on, this is a team that's coached by Scott Frost that has bad habits, and I don't see them kicking those bad habits. This is a coach that was bragging about his offensive line puking 20 times a damn practice. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why do we keep doing this with guys like this? Why do we keep, like, even look, Pat Fitzgerald saw that quote and was like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, like, that's how stupid that sounded. Okay? Like, even like, Brett Bielema was probably like, it's a bit much, man. Like, what are you doing? I can't, like you said, you cannot take a Scott Frost Nebraska team seriously until they absolutely prove it to me. Also, is Adrian Martinez still playing quarterback?
He is at Kansas State.
Oh, he's at Kansas. Oh, he's going to be great at Kansas State. We discussed this before. Yeah, he's going to be great there. It's going to drive Nebraska fans insane.
Their new quarterback is Casey Thompson, formerly of Texas.
No. Texas? You're taking the Texas quarterback?
Yep.
In the year of our Lord 2022?
Here's final question before we move on. After Oklahoma, they have a bye. After Purdue, they have a bye. Do we think either of those byes are going to lead to Scott Frost having to pack up his office?
Oklahoma's pretty early in the season, right?
Yes, that is.
It's going to be
fourth game of the year.
Too early.
Yes.
Purdue, if they are coming off a loss to the Spacemen, troubles brewing.
Troubles are brewing.
Moving on. I don't know if they fire him in season though. I think
that's fair.
I think the way they set this up, they'll just be like, just end of the year. If they go, but if they go 6-6, is he there? Is 6-6 enough of a turnaround from 3-9?
I need to see how it happens, because if they are 6-6 by just like, if they're 6-6, but in a way that is like, how do I say it?
If
they fired Bo Pelini for being too mean. So if they're 6-6 in a respectable way, I think they'll be fine.
But
is
it respectable to lose games again like they did last year? Like, is it respectable to just keep shitting the bed at the end of the game? I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast.
You get one, whatever. If they, what I will say, they end the year at Michigan, Wisconsin, at Iowa. If they look bad,
steamrolled,
bad.
If they get steamrolled, yeah, that's a good point. If they're 6-3 and finish 6-6, I actually do think that's a good point. Like, if they get, if that's a combined 35 points of loss, probably not good. That's a good point.
We'll make Iowa a quick one. Iowa,
Dude,
7.5.
just
I'm going to take the over because it's Iowa.
It's
Like,
Iowa. Are you kidding me?
I think Spencer Petras really sucks, but it's Iowa.
But he's an Iowa quarterback, man. They're all the same.
Right. Exactly.
Every Iowa quarterback. It's just like every Baylor quarterback was Bryce Petty for years.
Correct.
Every Iowa quarterback's the same dude, man.
Correct. What I will say, I will give them this. Their star punter, Torrey Taylor, is back, and he single-handedly won them multiple football games last year. Their crossover, South Dakota State at home, El Asico at home, Nevada at home. They should win all three of those games in large part because I expect Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell is just Big 12 Scott Frost. Let's call it like we see it. And then other than that, Northwestern at home.
Well, hang on. He's won 9 games before.
That's fair. Well, Scott Frost has won 12 games before. In the words of Stephen Godfrey,
that was at a feeder farm for Hilton night managers.
Fair. Anyway, we're both taking the Iowa over because
it's Kirk Ferentz and he rolls out of bed and gets 8 wins a season, man. Like that's just what he does, brother.
Michigan State 7.5. I think we all
doesn't this feel low? Doesn't this feel low? Even understanding it's going to be a step back, even understanding they're probably not going to be as good, 7.5. Because
what I will basically say is if their defense is as bad as it was last year, they're not going to have Kenneth Walker to save their asses this year. I think Peyton Thorne is a fine college quarterback. The fact that he lost one of his two wide. Yes, every Michigan State quarterback.
It's just like Iowa. Every Michigan State quarterback has been the same for years. It's really incredible how they keep doing this. It's great.
Yes, even with the new head coaching, still doing it. They lost one of their two pass catchers who he really relied on in Jalen Naylor. Their tight end Connor Hayward also no longer there. I do think Jaden Reed I think he's a baller, but. You then look at their non-conference, Western Michigan, Akron, at Washington. They're winning all 3 of those games. Minnesota at home after that, they're winning that game. So there's 4 right from the jump.
If you think they go on the road and beat Washington, then you lock up this over. There's and they're 3.5 point favorites, I think, on the look ahead line. If you think they go on the road and beat Michael Penix, old friend of the Big Ten, friend of the program here.
Never heard of them.
They go on the road and beat Washington, and Washington's not a particularly good Pac-12 football team. They're a middle of the pack. If you think they win that game, they lose to Ohio State and Penn State, and they can lose to Michigan, and you're still talking about 9 wins. If they win everything else, they could lose to Wisconsin and still get there. There's so many pathways for them. There's enough coin flip games on the schedule. And unlike Nebraska, I trust them in those games because I trust Mel Tucker more than I trust Scott Frost for sure. But they play fairly smart football. I just, they don't have, I don't know if the chaos machine still exists in East Lansing. I don't know if the weather machine can be dusted off anymore, but I trust them to play smart and not shoot themselves in the foot late in the game. And that's going to win them 8 games this year. Even if they stumble in a couple spots, if they beat Washington, you lock this up.
Right. If we're assuming Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan are all losses, which sure, we'll do that. Rest of their schedule, Western Michigan, Akron, at Washington, Minnesota, at Maryland, at Illinois, Rutgers, Indiana, at Penn State. You could throw one more. Even if it's not Penn State, even if they go into Happy Valley and beat Penn State at the end of the season, you have to think a Washington team that is starting to get it. They fired their coach last year, a new coach in, and you have to think by week 3 they're going to have things figured out to a point that they can beat Michigan State. Which Maryland, if they can't,
we talked about the Maryland game.
Yes, if Michigan State still can't stop teams from passing the ball, Taulia's going to throw for 500 yards on them. But that might not be enough because they're not able to do anything on defense. I'm on record. I don't love how they're building their program through just going portal shopping every year. And I think one time of messing up there can be really bad for them. But we haven't seen them mess up yet in the 1 year this is year 2 of doing that. Maybe it's something that could work for them. So I agree with you. I'm taking the over there. I think this number should at least just be set at 8. And maybe they would just get hammered on unders, but I think this should be set at 8 because the schedule is just not hard enough. It's really not. Let's move on to the love of my life, my sun and stars, the everything to me, Robbie, the Penn State Nittany Lions at 8.5, coming off of 2 years that weren't particularly great.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will basically say is that at 8.5, if you pen in Michigan and Ohio State as losses, you need to then assume they are going to lose 3 of at Purdue, at Auburn versus Michigan State to get to 7. Or
2. They need to lose 2.
Yeah. 2 of them get them to 8. I think they're going to beat Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Auburn, just as an institution. I think they're horribly unserious. That is a very tough game. Michigan State is just such a wild card to me.
Sure.
That I'm taking the under as a total emotional hedge here. If I could be perfectly frank about it. But, maybe they're able to make something happen. They should beat Purdue. They could beat Auburn. They could beat Michigan State. Mm-hmm. I understand that I am just being a pessimistic fan here. Tom has them as the over. What say you?
I'm gonna be the optimist here. I think they
go ahead.
I think they're the over team. I think if they can find close to the rhythm they had with Clifford last year before the injury, this is a team that's absolutely as good as Michigan State, if not better.
Yes.
Right? This is a team, and that's a home game. So I think it's weird taking overs on all of these East teams. I think I'm going to have the over on all 4 teams at the top of the East. But it's the way the schedules shake out. I think it can happen. Because it's again, if Michigan State was at 8, I would have a little more trepidation about them. But at 7.5, I think they can get to 8. Penn State, same thing. If they were at 9, I wouldn't lock up an over. I think they're a 9-win team. Yeah. You are right to be terrified of going to Auburn. You are 100% right to be terrified of going to Auburn, but they should win that game. I know it's Auburn. It's weird stuff happens. Auburn Jesus comes out and, Albie's flapping his wings and stuff, and people leave kicks short, and weird stuff happens, man. Balls bounce off helmets and into receivers' hands, and I've seen it all. I covered enough Auburn my time at CBS, my time at the Great Fan Buzz to know weird stuff happens. But that's also just an Auburn team that's in shambles.
I forgot they didn't fire Brian Harsin despite
a coup?
Boosters leaking to the media the name of a recruiting staffer, real bad
dude
stuff.
It was bad there. They don't really have a solid quarterback situation.
Tank Bigsby is he terrifies me, but
but also I'll say this.
But yes.
I say this respectfully to Tank Bigsby. If he was in the Big Ten, you would just think he was another Big Ten dude.
That's fair.
Honestly, you would just be yeah, man. If he was at Wisconsin, you'd be they did it again. right? Seriously, he looks weird because he's in a conference that doesn't, outside of Alabama, tends to have fleet-footed backs, right? Or at least more balanced guys, and he's just the big bruiser that you haven't seen in a while down there. You just haven't. Most of those teams outside Alabama gets one of those a year. They always have a 6'3" monster.
Yes.
But like if he was at Wisconsin, you'd be like, well, Wisconsin did it again.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hot dog. And also like the offensive line's not great. Like they should beat Auburn. If they beat Auburn, then you get to 9. That's the swing game, and obviously it's not a lock. But if they win that game, then they have the margin for error to lose to Michigan State or Minnesota or Purdue or somebody weird.
And like they won't beat Ohio State, but that is going to be a home game, and Ohio State just like forgets how to play football in Happy Valley sometimes. So
I think that's the toughest game on Ohio State's schedule. Yeah, toughest game on the Buckeyes.
Very well might be. I don't disagree. I was thinking
just because it's on the road.
Do I really want to say? Do I really want to say Notre Dame is, but that's not Notre Dame. Let's move on to the fighting Graham Mertzes. Graham Mertz still here in lovely Madison, Wisconsin. The Badgers at 9. They are the favorites to win the Big Ten West. And Robbie, I'm going to be a huge coward and push.
I mean, that's I think that's great. Like, look, man, I love Wisconsin football just as a ethos.
What it stands for.
Yeah, like I really do. If I were a Wisconsin fan, probably a little frustrated.
Yes.
Graham Mertz, I remember the Friday night game against, was it Nebraska, I'm pretty sure? Where he just carved them up.
Torched
400 yards or something. And we were talking about, Wisconsin's got a QB. No, they don't. Wisconsin never has a QB, man. They had Russell Wilson. They didn't have a QB, man.
They made Russell Wilson okay. Do you know how hard
Exactly. Like they had that man running I formation play action, throwing 7-yard out routes to tight ends. Russell Wilson, who throws maybe the most beautiful deep ball I've ever seen. He lays that thing in there, just dropped out of the sky, and you had that man running shallow crossers all day. What?
It is an ethos.
Do you think they ever do you think they ever even saw him throw a deep ball in practice and ever thought, hey man, like this dude could really drop it in there. Should we do this more?
So long as Barry Alvarez is living, no.
Dude, yeah. Look, and so here's the thing. There's just not they don't have the extra gear to beat the best teams. Like we know this, but you run into Camp Randall on the wrong weather day, and you have no chance. You have no chance if it's snowing and blowing 15. Wisconsin wins. I'm sorry. Don't care who you are, other than Ohio State. That's the only team I think that's impervious to Wisconsin.
Having said that, I just looked at their 3 toughest games on the schedule: Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa. Those are all on the road.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing.
Schedule makers were not nice.
No, they didn't give them the. If Michigan State was at Camp Randall, I'd have a completely different outlook on.
Yes,
I think them and Michigan State. But it's not. It's in East Lansing, and Wisconsin's just fine. Like they're a fine football team outside of Camp Randall, and like inside whenever the jump around thing and plus 10 skill attributes everywhere.
Yes.
Well, they're going to run the damn ball. We know that, and I'm going to enjoy watching it, and I'm going to have unders a lot because they're going to play good defense. And Paul Chris is going to lumber up and down that sideline and look like he's in desperate need of a bathroom at all times.
They really should just make Jim Leonard their coach. Like,
dude, what Jim Leonard?
This man is a marvel.
How many coordinators, offensive or defensive, would you take before you put Jim Leonard on your staff?
Not many.
Nah, he's top 5. That dude. Because here's the thing: Wisconsin's not out there out athleting you. right?
No.
Like you're not sitting there with a defense that just has speed at every position. And that dude gets them like we talk about, you know, how we always how I used to always love Northwestern because they were a good fundamental tackling team. I don't think I've ever seen a team that tackles better than Wisconsin year in year out.
No,
Like
absolutely.
they drill it and they are fundamental. They are on it. And look, again, the ethos speaks to me at a very deep and personal level. Are they a team that can win 10 games? Maybe if one thing breaks right, but those 3 road games are just tough, and I think it's a 9-win season.
Right. If I had to pick, if you know, gun to my head, I have to pick whether or not they go over or under 9. I would probably pick. Oh God, I'd probably pick the under just because. Like
it's too easy for their margin for error is always so much thinner because they're not scoring.
Exactly. They win games 17-13. Yeah.
And when you're so dependent on that, you are a bad snap away from trouble, right? Like or you're Graham Mertz doing something stupid over the middle away from trouble. And it's the one problem with playing that kind of football is you are always one bad turnover in the wrong spot away from taking a game that you have control over, but are only up 5 points, and you are now down 2 points, and now you have to score quickly. And as we know, that's not a thing the Badgers do.
Correct. Moving on, second to last team we're going to do, Michigan at 9.5. I know they lost their 2 best edge rushers. I know they have to replace a few guys on that defense. But, brother, Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Maryland to start the season.
4-0 by a combined 115 points.
Yes. Penn State, Michigan State at home. Their road Big Ten East games are Rutgers and Indiana.
And the Buckeyes.
You basically have to think that they are going to lose to Ohio State. Mm-hmm. You have to think they're going to lose to somebody else. And Michigan, our pal Brad talked to him before we started this. Yeah, 2 more.
Where's the third loss? That's what he said, just screaming at me. Where's it?
You have to think they're going to get Kinnicked. They're going to lose one of Penn State or Michigan State, and they are going to lose in Columbus. And I think this Michigan team, you know, SP Plus has them at number 6 in the country. Like, I think their defense is going to take a step back, but even with losing Hassan Haskins, I think their offense is going to be awesome. The only thing that can mess it up is if they decide they're going to try and have 2 quarterbacks with Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy, which at a certain point, I just don't know if they're going to do that.
How many times do you think Jim Harbaugh has called him Cade McCarthy? 5?
The answer is yes.
The
answer is yes. Over. It's the clip of that one Trump lawyer testifying in front of Congress. Over. Over. Yes.
Yeah, I think you basically have to think, like you said, they've got to lose at Iowa, and they've got to lose one of those Penn State, Michigan State. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but getting Penn State and Michigan State at home is such a big win for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think I'm taking the over on all 4 top of the East teams, and it feels dirty.
Yeah,
but we got some unders at the bottom. I think the Big Ten is getting to a point where you just have the haves and have-nots, and it's slowly separate. They're slowly separating away from each other, except for in the West.
Mm-hmm. It's especially the case in the East, where 4 teams are just going to beat up on 2 teams, and then whatever Maryland decides it wants to be on a given day, either beat up or barely beat that third team. So you basically write in 3 wins for every Big Ten East team, and then kind of go from there. All right, Ohio State, 11.
Over. You know it's the right.
Yeah.
It's gross. No, It's gross.
That's the thing. It's boring to talk about. It's not even gross. It's just like, yeah, what's the point? But, Ohio State's going to beat everybody.
Well, thing is they can lose. They can lose, and you don't lose.
Yeah.
If it was 11.5, maybe you have to have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
But you think they're going to lose? Anybody who thinks Ohio State has 2 losses in them, I would love to meet you. Actually, I probably would not love to meet you. I probably don't want to talk to you about football. But I mean, where's the 2? Where's the 2 losses?
So you basically have to believe they will lose. You have to think they're going to lose at home to Michigan, which I don't, under any circumstance. And then you have to think one of Notre Dame, no. A brand new head coach walking into Ohio Stadium for a night game. Good luck. I think Marcus Freeman is going to do a great job. Good luck to you, my brother. Wisconsin at home, no. At Michigan State, absolutely not. At Penn State, no. So, it's just really hard unless there are just horrible injuries all over. If they just have injury luck that cannot, nobody else is able to match how bad their injury luck is. But even then, all their backups are 5 stars.
They're better than you.
Exactly.
Who is there? All right, how about this? If you trotted out most of Ohio State's backups, if they came into a game and of their 22 starters, they had to replace 11, scattershot. Yeah. How many games change on the schedule in terms of them being favored? 2?
Yeah, Michigan, and then maybe that's where
Penn State, maybe Michigan State. Oh yeah, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I want that game to be competitive so badly because I like Marcus Freeman, which I don't liking a Notre Dame head coach. By the way, I do not know Notre Dame to having a likable personality at head coach. I'm supposed to be able to look at your sideline and just loathe that person. The entire aura of Notre Dame, Lou Holtz, Brian Kelly, any of them, I probably would have hated.
Brian Kelly literally took the admission test for the CIA. You are not allowed to like the guy who coaches Notre Dame, and yet Marcus Freeman.
And Marcus Freeman looks awesome, and I like him, and I want him to succeed, but I would like him to succeed somewhere other than Notre Dame. Yes. I want that game to be competitive. It probably will not. Maybe it can be for a half. That's the ideal. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Ohio State's not fun to
wager against.
Well, to wager against, or even to really discuss in a regular season format.
Yeah,
it's not fun to sit here and talk about what's at stake for Ohio State in the race. They're a playoff team. They're in the playoff. Right. They can lose a game and they're in the playoff. They can lose to Michigan, win the Big Ten title, and be in the playoff.
Robby, they made the playoff when they lost the game and didn't win the Big Ten.
They're going to make the playoff.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
The only thing that matters to Ohio State is what happens when they play Alabama or Clemson or Georgia or whomever that team is going.
No, I think those are the only 3 teams they care about. I don't even think they care if they play somebody else in the playoff. If they play a semifinal against anybody other than those 3 teams, do you think Ohio State's worried? No.
No, probably not.
No, those are the 3 teams. That's where we're at. Which is and this is why
even with Clemson will even put a little bit of an asterisk on
because is DJ
they have to prove they know how to play offense. I will say we are forgetting, Robby. Mm-hmm. Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia all got first place votes in the coaches poll, and then there's one other team that got a first place vote.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Hook 'em.
First place vote in 18th. That is beautiful.
Under.
Hook 'em, baby.
Under.
Hook 'em, baby. Under.
We're not talking about Big Ten win totals, but under.
Fraudulence.
Dude. Come on, man. What are we doing? Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting. It's why I kind of like doing win total talk because it brings something, I guess, to the regular season conversation for all these other teams. It's not fun to talk about Ohio State's win total, but I think it is kind of fun to have a reason to care about whether Iowa hits 8. It's one of those things where it's I think for me on the national perspective, I think at a hyper local perspective, fans care about their teams. You don't have to worry about that. But
Right.
on a national perspective, I think the value of gambling is it makes you care about some of these micro, very narrow topics and teams that don't matter on the grand scale of who wins a championship, because there's 4 teams that can win the championship. Maybe 6.
I have 2 friends, one who lives in New York, one who lives in Pennsylvania, who because of last season are UTSA season ticket holders because they just loved betting on UTSA and watching
Oh
UTSA.
my God.
Like,
Roadrunners, meet
my brother.
We won some money off of them.
The entire conversation about college football over the last 2 decades has turned into literally the only thing that matters is the 4 teams that make the playoff.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters, and this is a really good way to say, like, hey, I want to be interested in Wake football. I want to be interested in Air Force football because it gives me a stake in these games when, again, the last 20 years of my life have been none of these games have stakes as anything other than a means to an end for figuring out who the national champion is.
Right, and it's the thing that I think makes college football better in terms of the regular season experience than some of the, I mean, we do NBA stuff, and the frustration with the NBA is the regular season doesn't matter. Which is why we have enjoyed the play-in, I know, because it's made teams try that are in the middle of the pack.
Exactly.
But the rings thing is tough. But let's pull up Robbie's futures here. Troy over 5.5. Anybody? Oh, these are all blind following Bud Elliott sickos plays. All right. Toledo over 8. Go Rockets. Might bet them to win the MAC. Arkansas State under 5. Down with the Red Wolves, my rivals of my Panthers. Go Georgia State.
I cannot believe you were betting against Butch Jones like that.
Over 6.5. Over 6.
Dignifying it with a response. Let's go.
I hope he brings the trash can back. Over 6.5 SMU. Under 6.5 FAU. The former Fighting Kiffins. Over 6 San Jose State. Love the Spartans. They will get up in your ass and they will make life hell for you out on the West Coast. They ain't soft. San Jose State and San Diego State, not California soft teams. They are at their heart
different.
Whew, I love me San Diego State football, man. You want to talk about my noon ESPN2 Big Ten and 10:30 ESPN2 San Diego State, or preferably on the mothership CBS Sports Network, San Diego State. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Brady, listen, man, Brady Hoke. You could say a lot of things about Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke going home?
He knows how he wants his football teams to play, and it's
thriving.
Not appealing. Right.
Nevada under 4.5. Nevada stinks. Air Force over 8.5. Love the Plains this year. There we go. You want a couple week 0 plays for the people?
Of course.
I always take the Bows. Big Island. All right. Timmy Chang. Here's the thing. I don't think people realize
my God, I just looked at who they play. Oh
my Vanderbilt Commodores. I love the Doors. However, you're telling me Vanderbilt, a team whose win total is 2.5, I believe, is flying the longest flight of any team this season, flying to the Big Island to play a Hawaii team that I don't think – so here's the thing. I don't think people realize how much Hawaii hated Todd Graham, okay? They the entire team was threatening to quit if he didn't resign. There was a legit player-led revolution because he was such a dirtbag to all of them and was verbally and physically abusive. And everybody was like, oh, Hawaii stunk. They stunk because they literally hated their coach, okay, and did not want to be there. Everybody wanted to transfer and leave. They have the god Timmy Chang in charge now, okay? Okay, that is a Hawaii football legend. They are going to play so hard for him. They are selling out. They don't play at Aloha Stadium anymore. It's too big. They are selling out Their new complex has like 9,300 seats. Gonna be bumping, okay? Gonna be bumping for the Doors coming to town. You think Vandy's traveling much? I mean, look, they have I'll say this: if any school can travel to Hawaii, it is Vanderbilt's grads. Okay, they've got the money for it. However, Hawaii plus 7 or 8. If you can get 8, take the 8. We're taking the bows. Might sprinkle the money line. Might sprinkle the money line.
I was going to say on the field.
Might sprinkle it.
The bows on the field.
Also, and this is super gross. This is just tailing somebody, and I hate it. But Charlotte FAU over 57.5. Gross. Over.
Oh man, there will be points in Boca Raton.
It's warm. When it's warm, the points come out. Everybody knows this. If you listen to the podcast, to the podcast, you know the only thing that can negate a wonder: 80 degrees plus. That's science. Science, friends. A podcast of science is what the podcast is, and now this one is too.
My one question before I wrap this up.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on UConn, Utah State, where Utah State are 26.5 point favorites?
I will. I'm recording the podcast in a little bit. I have to get my thoughts together, but the Jim Mora Jr. era is about to begin in earnest, and I have to decide. So here's the thing: I'm in conflict right now because I love betting on UConn football because Robby loves the candy, friends. I love the candy. I love UConn. I love UMass. I love teams that get 30 points a game. I can't. You put that little plus next to like 4 touchdowns, and I'm like a child. I just give me that. However, I used to bet against UCLA so much when Jim Mora Jr. was the coach. So much. I grew up in Atlanta, friends. I know about Jim Mora Jr. as a head coach. I'm not a Falcons fan, but I grew up in Atlanta. He's not good. However, year one Jim Mora Jr. can be he might get something out of him.
The vibes aren't off yet.
But here's the thing. Like, why? I'm going to do the Brian Windhorst. Why would Jim Mora Jr. take a job at UConn? Why? Why would he do this, Bill DiFilippo?
Let's hear this.
Why would he do this?
Why?
Because he was already living there, is why. Because he was doing, I kid you not, because he was doing TV for CBS. He was already in Connecticut. And he said, you know what? I coach in stores.
The itch? The itch?
I don't even think it was the itch. I literally think it was like he lived like 5 minutes from the stadium. And he was like, that's an easier place to go than New York City for studio work.
That's fair.
It's right there. Fair. It's right there every day.
One thing I forgot about UConn.
Do you think he's he's all in on UConn football? Do you think he cares that much anymore? No, sir. UConn's going to be just as bad as they always were.
UConn's defensive coordinator quit a week ago. So yeah, real bad. Robby,
lay it.
Find you.
Lay it. You can find me on the tweets at @RCalland. You can find our work at uproxxsports.com. And if for some reason you enjoyed this, you can listen to an even worse version of this podcast every week on the Puntcast with Tom Fernelli, Chip Harrison. We go through every single game of the week on the spread, on the totals. And sometimes we have picks, sometimes we don't. We just talk about things. We'll introduce you to the marvelous science of wonders, wind-aided unders. And it's a pretty terrible podcast, but we have a lot of fun. That's it, Bill. As always, a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all mine, my brother. Robby, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you to everyone for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. As always, make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you go to get your podcasts. If you're using Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving us a 5-star review. Hop into the YouTube comment section. Say nice things on YouTube. We need more positivity in this world.
This is on video?
Yeah, brother. You look great. Don't worry. Particularly on YouTube comment sections, we need more positivity in there. Let's get that going in there. And make sure Shout out to Home Field Apparel. Make sure you're using the code ROAR, one word, all uppercase, for 15% off of your first order. One last time, thank you very much for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. I'm Bill DeFilippo. Take care, everyone.